Couple of announcements. Thank you, Geshe, for being here, for making it up to Williams Lake and back down and become the teachings today. You're a better man than I tell you. So I was also gonna thank you, Janine, and you, John, and Janet, wherever you are, and Sarah and Mary, all for all of your support and getting Geshe here and taking care of Geshe when he's here, and Mary for being the Zoom master and all of that. One of the things all of you have.
And thank you for being our SPC.
So again, as usual, we'll try to start with a short mindfulness breathing exercise to quiet your mind, to bring your mind in moment and present. Okay. So just try to relax. Make yourself comfortable. And try to let go of all the thought about past and futures for a moment. Bring your mind to the breath. When you breathe in and out, watching it mindfully and being aware. When you breathe in, be aware you are breathing in. When you breathe out, watch mindfully and be aware you are breathing out. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Simply just observing and being aware of that. Then we can try to cultivate good intention for being here. we can think, contemplate that purpose of our life is not only to be concerned with just ourselves, but also to be helping benefit to the society, to the world, to other sentient beings. As much as we can, according to our own capacity and ability. And to be able to be more help benefit to the society, to the world that we live in, to other beings. It is important and crucial to have less negative thoughts, feelings, and to have more positive thoughts, feelings, mind, such as patience instead of impatience, compassion instead of anger, understanding others instead of being too judgmental, and having wisdom instead of ignorance. And in order to reduce those negative, disturbing negative thoughts and to improve helpful, beneficial, positive thoughts, we need to train our mind through meditation and practice. And for that, we need to learn different meditation techniques, practices, study, as well as we need to be reminded of those practices. For that very reason, that's why we have gathered here with the hope and intention to learn about some of helpful practices, meditations, so we can apply in our everyday life. So we can find more inner peace, joy, happiness in ourselves, and to be more help and benefit to others. Also, may our act of coming together to listen, to engage in discussion, reflection, contemplations, may all these become cause and conditions to achieve our highest potential, a fully awakened state. So we can be greatest help, benefit, and to all sentient beings. Okay.
Okay, so we'll do the, in our prayer books, the first prayer, the praying to Shakyamuni Buddhas. We'll do it 3 times in English. to the founder, the
endowed,
transcendent destroyer,
the one born beyond the fall destroyer, completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct. Sugata, Lord of the world, supreme guide of human beings, be tamed. Teacher of the gods, human being. To you, the complete and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subdued from Shakya claim. I prostrate with offerings in God for life. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the force of fire, completely perfect and fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct. Sugata, Lord of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subdued from Shakya clan. I prostrate, make offerings in what order.
to the founder,
The endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one beyond, the fourth destroyer, completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct. Sugata, Lord of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of the gods and human beings, to you the complete and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subdued from the Shakya clan. I prostrate, make offerings in the way.
we'll do the short mandala offering in English. This ground,
And then do it for the stone flowers, the golden mountain. May all living beings enjoy this tonight. Idam Guru Ranam
and taking refuge in generating bodhicitta. We'll do it once in English and twice in Tibetan. I go for refuge in
until I align to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through this move of Dharma, may I become a Buddha who represents all sentient beings. Sangye Chadam Sangye Chonam Chanju Bhagavad Dane Jansuchi Dhargi Chashe Kebe Sonam Lola Penja Sangye Drupa Sangye Chadam Sangye Chonam Chanju Bhagavad Dane Jansuchi Dhargi Chashe Kebe Sonam Lola Penja Sangye Drupa 이제 도전이선에 더 던져보면서 더 배전에 빌려를 고정대로 처음으로. So since last week we have just started new subjects, and one of the very important, as I mentioned last week, very foundations of all the Buddhist teaching and practice. And the first teaching the Buddha gave our enlightenment, and not only he gave one time, he gave many times over the 45 years of his enlightenment. And so it's called Four Noble Truths. And in terms of sequences of generating, first you create the cause and conditions of the sufferings. And when you have created the cause and condition for the sufferings, then suffering is manifested or you experience the sufferings. So in that sense, the truth of the origin or the cause comes first, and then the truth of suffering comes second. That is in terms of, why living beings suffer, why we suffer. The reason why we suffer is because we create cause and condition that lead to that suffering. On the other hand, when you create cause and conditions, that can destroy the root or cause of the sufferings, then you can achieve total freedom, liberation from all the sufferings. So by creating the cause and condition to free or liberate from the suffering, then you can achieve state that is free from the suffering, cessations. So again, in that sense, first there is, in terms of cultivating or generating, first you generate or cultivate the path. And by cultivating the path, then you achieve the result, the cessations, the nirvana, the total freedom or total liberation from all the suffering. So in that case, again, the path of the noble truth of the path comes first, and then the cessation comes second. So there is cause and effect in terms of the suffering, and there is cause and effect in terms of overcoming the suffering or freedom from the sufferings. So those are the Four Noble Truths. But as we read the sutra last time, the presentation in terms of sequence is slightly different. In terms of presentation, it doesn't start with the cause, origin, the truth of origin, and then truth of suffering, but it starts the other way around. The truth of suffering comes first, and then after that, the truth of origin comes. And in terms of the others, reverse, then instead of the truth of path, it comes first truth of cessation and the truth of path. So the way it is generated and the way it is explained in sutra, the sequence is slightly different. And the reason is because there's purpose why Buddha explained that way. As I mentioned, when you are sick, when we have some problem, physically, emotionally, some sickness, some illness, first we have to recognize that illness. If you don't recognize your own, even you are feeling ill, if you don't recognize you are feeling ill, then you will not try to find what was the cause of that illness. Do you get it? Once you recognize, I have this illness, then we try to know what is the cause of that illness. Illness that I do not want, but I'm experiencing that illness. So what is the cause of that illness? You try to find. Once you find the cause of the illness, then your next step is, can the illness and the cause of illness be cured? Can it be relieved? Is there a cure to that? And once you find there is a cure to that, then you try to take the cure itself, whatever treatment, whatever medicine, whatever cure that is. So similarly, that is what suffering. First, we recognize suffering as a suffering. Once we recognize the suffering, then we try to find out what is the cause of that suffering. So then truth of the suffering, the truth of origin comes, or cause comes. Once you understand the truth once you find out and understand what is the cause of that suffering, then next is there. a cure or cessation from the suffering or not? Can that suffering be ended? So can suffering be ended? Is there an end to the suffering? Can the suffering be stopped? And then from Buddhist point of view, the Buddha said, yes, all this suffering, you can free from all the suffering. You don't have to suffer. And there he calls cessations. There is an end to the suffering. There is a cessations. There's a liberation or freedom from the suffering and cause of sufferings. If there is a freedom from the suffering and cause of suffering, if there is a cessations, what is the path that leads to that cessation? What is the medicine? What is the cure? And then next explain that is the path, the Eightfold Noble Path. Eightfold Noble Path is the cure. Eightfold Noble Path is the medicine for the cessations. And so therefore then that's how, in terms of the way Buddha explained is on the basis of that. And last week we kind of talked a little bit about the first I read from the sutta itself, and then we spoke a little bit about and we also discussed suffering here. I also mentioned because different translators have used different term for that, because none of each term actually can cover it exactly. So therefore, so sometimes a lot of teachers or translators sometimes they prefer to keep the original word itself, dukkha, because when you translate as a suffering, it doesn't have same meaning exactly. Sometimes in the sutta that we read, it has translated stress, but again, it doesn't, some translator, they translate as dissatisfied also. And so therefore, a lot of teachers and translators, they prefer to keep the original word because they cannot find exact English word. Whichever English word you use, it only covers one part of that, not the whole thing. So that is why. But in many of them, you see the sufferings, as being translated, So basically, as I mentioned, what it means is ordinary life. Okay, when we say ordinary life, samsaric life, ordinary life, which means the life that is driven by delusion and karma, contaminated karma, is a suffering. Sometimes it's hard for us to accept that. But such ordinary life, such a samsaric life, the Buddha saying, suffering, or such samsaric ordinary life is full of sufferings, full of problem, full of pain. If we don't understand it as a nature of sufferings, then we don't develop a mind to renounce such ordinary life, meaning, to give up the attachment to such life. And when you are still attached to such samsaric life, such ordinary life, then you can, if you are attached to that, you will never try to get out of there. You will never try to, if you feel prison is If you don't feel prison as a prison, bad suffering, if you feel prison is very nice place to be, you will not try to get out of it. Once you feel how painful it is being in prison, then you will try all your ability, whatever capacity you have to get out of that. Whatever you need to, whatever means, way that you have, same way. And because we are so attached to this samsaric life and this samsaric ordinary life, so we are still caught up in samsara again and again and again. And I'm being unable to go free from that samsaric life. And because of not truly recognizing that. So that is why here, the first teaching is that, that's why it becomes very important. That's why Buddha emphasized on that subject first. And that is same with anything, like we might have problem, some people have problem with addictions, and that addiction can be different things, different things. Some people might have problem with, rage, anger, some people might have problems with, egoistic mind, they're so strong ego, where they feel, they're always better than others, So, different people can have a different problem. And a lot of times, some people recognize their problem. They recognize, oh, addictions is a problem for me. Or anger is a problem for me. Or not only me, in my relationship with others. Some people recognize my ego is problem. That's why I'm having a difficulty with getting together with other people. The reason I'm having no matter with whom I'm having a difficulty with any relationship because of my egoistic mind. They recognize that. So whatever problem, once you recognize and once you accept this is a problem, then you will try to find solution to that. How can I get out of these addictions? How can I get out of this problem with anger? How can I get out of this problem with my egoistic mind? How can I get out of this problem with whatever problem? And you will find a solution, way to get out of that. But you don't recognize that as a problem, because like in many people, even their problem addiction, they don't accept, they don't recognize it is a problem. Some people, even though anger is a problem, they don't acknowledge or they don't recognize that is a problem. And with all others. And when they don't see it as a problem, and when they don't acknowledge it as a problem, when they don't recognize and see it as a problem, then they don't try to find solution to fix it. They don't try to improve themselves. They don't try to find for help to get out of that state, because they say this is not a problem. I have no problem. Same way. That is the same way. Then you can never get out of that problem, because you will never find for a solution to that. You will never try to get out of that. You will never try to reach for help or do yourself to get, because you never acknowledge or recognize that is a problem. And same, when you don't recognize suffering as a suffering, then we don't try to find the solutions and to get out of that suffering state. And that's why those recognizing suffering as suffering become very crucial and important to liberate totally from all the suffering completely. And through reading the sutra last time, we talked about some of the sufferings, especially in human realms, the suffering of birth, suffering of sickness, suffering of aging, suffering of death, suffering of not getting what you want, suffering of encountering what you do not like, not a wish, the suffering of losing or being separated from those you like, those which you are close to, whether it is another being, human being, animals, your pets, or whether it is another objects, something you feel very dear to you, something you feel very near to you, very close to you. We don't want to lose that. We don't want to lose that. But then, the fear of losing that, the suffering. We suffer so much because we have so much fear of losing them. We have so much sufferings because we have always fear of being separated or being losing them. Through that, we suffer a lot. On the other hand, same thing. There are things that we don't like. There are things that we hate. There are things that we dislike so much, and we don't want to be any close to those things. We want to be distant from that. But again, there's a fear of coming. There's fear of encountering them. For example, maybe let's say we don't want floods, wildfires. So we have fear of that. Fear of maybe there might be a wildfire this year. Maybe there might be a flood this year. Or maybe there might be a drought this year. So that gives a lot of fear. And through fear, we suffer. So through that, we experience so much, many different level of sufferings. And those kind of suffering, it's the suffering of hunger, the suffering of thirsty, and so there are so many, the suffering of too hot, the suffering of too cold, So, but most of those suffering are quite obvious, and most of those suffering, we recognize it as sufferings. Not only we recognize as one of the great Tibetan masters, Benjamin Lobsang Cherkin, one of the Benton Lama, as he said, the suffering of these are what we call suffering of pain. Okay, quite obvious pain, sufferings. Not only we human being, even the animal recognize those as a suffering, and they try to avoid that. Why they try to avoid that? Because they know it's a pain, suffering, and they don't want that. What we call suffering of pain, the obvious suffering, the very obvious suffering. When you get wounded, when you get sick, even the animals, they recognize getting sick, that wound is painful, so they try to avoid that. When they are not feeling well, they try to find a solution. They find some plan or something other their own way to cure themselves, to heal themselves. Many animals, are able to find their own they're using their own ability to heal themselves from different ways. Why? Because they know that is pain they don't want, same hunger, thirsty, too hot, too cold. They understand those are pain, suffering they do not want. And they try to find when it's too hot, trying to find a shade, when it's too cold, trying to find being in the sun or some places where it's warm, when they are too hungry, because of the pain, to solve that problem, they try to find food. When they are thirsty, they try to look for the water and trying to, because they also understand those are pain, sufferings, and they do not, there's something they don't want, and they do not wish, and something painful, and they want, in order to want to get free or to live of that, so they try to find a way out. So as Panchen Lama said, not only we human beings, even the animal recognize that as a sufferings. So in the teachings, they talk about three kinds of sufferings: suffering of pain, suffering of change, suffering of all pervasives. Next one, the suffering of change is that is the way for most of us, we cannot see that as a suffering. We are unable to recognize it as suffering. Instead, most time we see it as a happiness. And therefore we get attached to them. And therefore we try to create a cause condition to have those kind of things. And so what the Buddha says, those are not really happiness. It's not true happiness. Actually, it's a suffering of change. And that is why sometimes they use, instead of suffering, dissatisfactions in relation to these particular sufferings. So let's take, normally what we call happiness, joy, comfort, pleasure in our life. Whenever hungry, breakfast burrito sounds great for me, And when I eat it, seems I have some pleasure, some kind of pleasure from that. It gives me some level of joy. And that is what I feel, that is the joy, that is the pleasure, that is the happiness. So I'm attached to that experience. And then I pursue to collect things that give me that happiness. Okay. Or, you have been walking, running, hiking for a long time, feel very thirsty, and you have something cold drink. It gives you kind of very cool, nice feelings. It gives you some kind of pleasant feeling, joyful feelings. It gives you a certain level of pleasure. The same thing, when it's too cold, and it's too cold. In the winter, you go out and bask in the sun. It gives you warmness. Again, you feel really nice, good, pleasant. Give you some kind of joyfulness. In the monastery, when you were young, when we have little time, in winter it's very cold. And you see everyone in the sun, just sitting there, all studying in the sun, But then after maybe half hour, 1 hour, it's too hot. It's too hot. Then again, you want to find a kind of more shade place. And again, you stay there for a while, again, you start getting more cold. So basically, what I'm saying is, I'm saying the Buddha says, and in the teaching, what it says is, this kind of happiness, pleasure, that we enjoyment, these are what we call happiness. These are what we try to achieve in our life. But the Buddha says, actually, these are not true happiness. They are not true happiness. For one, a lot of them, when you continue to experience that, it changes into pain and sufferings. Just like I was saying, when you have been staying in the too cold and you are in the sun, there's a warmness. But if you stay over time, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, it changes into sufferings, pain, too hot, uncomfortable, unpleasant. Same again, you feel too hot, you go in a place where there is breeze, where there is shade, and again, at the very beginning, there is certain level of pleasure, certain level of enjoyment, certain level of pleasant feeling. But if you stay there, again, eventually, over the time, it changes into the pain and suffering. Again, you become uncomfortable. It's too cold. It's too unpleasant. Same with eating, drinking. When I'm hungry, maybe breakfast burrito, first breakfast burrito was great. And I eat, if I order the second burrito, then, it will be too much. My stomach doesn't feel light. I don't feel nice. I feel, kind of too heavy and unpleasant. So it transforms. The joy transforms into something uncomfortable, unpleasant. So that's why Buddha says it's not true happiness. If it's true happiness, the more you enjoy, the more you have to increase your enjoyment. It has to increase your pleasure more and more. The more you do that, the more and more happiness you should be experiencing. The more and more pleasure you should be experiencing. That's not the case. It transforms into the pain and suffering. It's very interesting, isn't it? We don't think about that normally. We just believe, oh, this is joy, this is happiness, this is pleasant. But if you really deeply think about it, those experiences doesn't remain joyful, happy, pleasure. As you experience more and more of that, it actually transforms into unpleasant, uncomfortable. And we can think of, I'll just give a few examples, but that is the same, in all kind of pleasure, enjoyment, happiness that we think of in our life, it end up with similar, it doesn't, it transforms into pain, sufferings, or, at the very beginning, there's some joy, and later it leads to disappointment, suffering, or that happiness, joy, pleasant feeling does not remain for a long time. It might remain for a few minutes, few seconds, few minutes, few hours. It's lucky few days. Even those feeling, even we feel for a few days, even if it's not same, but there's some continuity of that feeling. But basically, that experience arises and goes, does not remain forever. So that doesn't give you lasting satisfactions. That doesn't give you lasting satisfactions. I was satisfied, happy for a few moments, and then next moment, there's no more satisfaction anymore. Wanting more, something else, more, better. So there's no true satisfaction. It leads to dissatisfied mind. It doesn't give you true satisfaction, true happiness. So that is why, again, suffering will change. Such experience are never lasting. Such experience are never lasting. Whatever enjoyment, whatever pleasure, whatever good feeling we had at the very beginning do not last. If we think in our life, has there been any experience that you had nice pleasure, happy, joyful feelings that has remained forever so far? No. We have gone through so many different experiences. But all those experiences are momentary, does not last. Because they are momentary, does not last, so therefore it cannot give us true satisfactions. It cannot give us true satisfactions, true happiness, true joy, enjoyment. So that is one, recognizing that kind of happiness, samsaric, what we call samsaric pleasure or samsaric happiness, or contaminated happiness. To understand such happiness are not true happiness, but actually in the nature of suffering. To recognize that is not easy. To recognize that is not easy. Even with us studying, even for myself, that I've studied that, intellectually I understand that, but still my everyday experience, still I don't feel that is the suffering. I feel that is the happiness. And I'm running after that. I'm still running after to have those experience, and then to create the accumulate cause and condition that will give that experience. Why I'm so running after that? Because I'm attached to that. Because I am attached to that. And attached to that because I have not understood profoundly or deeply from the bed that they are actually the nature of suffering. They are not true happiness. Even here, sometimes we feel it is when we talk about it and analyze the way Buddha explained, and not only he explained, but then we try to look in our own experience and we find that is true. But still, in terms of our feeling, everyday feeling, still we feel those are happiness that I want. And if I have that one, that will give me that happiness. And therefore, I need that thing. Therefore, I have to accumulate that. Therefore, I have to gather that. Therefore, I have to, and so that is it. And that is why we're still in samsara. That's why we're still samsara. That's why we're in samsara, because we haven't really understood. Those are not true happiness, but in the nature of suffering. When we talk suffering, we're not talking about pain. It is physical pain, emotional pain here. So it is So it is not so easy. It's not so easy to, we need to really practice deeply to be able to have that realizations profoundly experiential. If we understand these are not true happiness, but in the nature of suffering, deeply and profoundly, then we will not be running after them. Then we will not be running after them. Then we will not be so attached to them and we will not be so running after them. But in our everyday experience is that, we are running after them because we are still attached to them, and we are still attached to them because we have not recognized they are actually a nature of suffering. On other hand, if we realize from depth of your heart, deeply, profoundly, they are not true suffering, but actually they are in the nature of suffering, then you will not be so attached to them. Then you will not be so attached to them. Then we will not be running after them all the time. We will not be running after all the time. Whatever, when we encounter certain cause and conditions, and due to that certain encounter certain cause and conditions, if it give us some kind of pleasure, some kind of momentary pleasure, momentary pleasant feeling, momentary enjoyment, joyfulness, we experience that, but we will not be attached to that. We just experience it and just, whatever experience when it due to without having to put so much effort when cause and condition comes, and when we experience, we just experience that, but without clinging and grasping to that, without any attachments, whereas when you are attached to that, then there is a different layer. So anyway, so the great that Tibetan master, Benjamin Boston Chogyam, he said, the suffering of change, the animal do not recognize the suffering of change as a suffering. And within a human being, not everyone understand, recognize the suffering of change as suffering. But there are many practitioners who understand suffering of change and suffering, and therefore they are not attached to that. Therefore, they renounce it. They give up. So, like in the mountains, among almost every spiritual path, there are a lot of practitioners who have given up all the pleasure to all the desired objects, who leave everything and who try to live without anything in the mountains, hermitage, and you see from all spiritual paths, whether it's Buddhist, whether it's Hindu, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Judaism, whether it's Islam, there are practitioners, many of all these different practitioners who have decided to not get attached to all this, all this kind of pleasure. They see this pleasure as just not real pleasure, not really happiness. And so they give up attached to that. They give up, they renounce all of that, and then they try to practice, meditate, without any of that. And So those are the ones who understand not only the suffering of pain as suffering, but they also understand the suffering of change as a suffering. And therefore they are not attached to that. And therefore they kind of renounce them. Instead of being attached to them, they are not attached, they give up attachment, they renounce them. Because they recognize that's not true happiness. It's not true happiness. And in some, through that, then they engage into meditation on cultivating as, meditative concentration and different level of meditative concentrations, And through the practice of those meditative concentration and a high level of meditative concentration, that they try to develop, kind of inner blissful joy, happiness, as well as through those practice, to achieve, higher rebirth, such as the God realms, different level of God realms. So that's what they aspire to be in those states, and they engage in the practice to be in those such state, such realms. Then Buddha says the third type, suffering of pervasive. And why he said pervasive is because that third level of the suffering is pervaded in all six realms, among all sentient beings. Suffering or pain, sometimes we experience, sometimes we don't experience. Because I don't experience illness all the time, sometimes I experience. I don't experience death all the time, suffering of death. I don't experience the suffering of hunger, thirst all the time. Sometimes you experience extreme coldness, those sufferings. We experience sometimes, but we don't experience all the time. Certain realm, it is experienced, certain realm, they don't experience. In certain, like form and formless God realms, they don't have those suffering or pain. And then not only that, and then if you go certain amongst the formless God, within the sum of the form God, they don't even have suffering or change. All they experience is equanimity, not even neutral, not even a kind of unpleasant feeling or even pleasant feeling. They don't even have pleasant feelings. They just have neutral feelings due to their certain nature concentrations. So therefore, there's no pleasant feeling transforming into something unpleasant, or pleasant feeling that is there at the very beginning and then, or momentary, because they don't even experience that. All they experience are more neutral feelings. So the two first suffering does not pervade in all the six realms with all the sentient beings, but third one pervade in all the six realms. That's why it's called pervasive suffering. Here, what it means, that's this particular suffering, is, you're very aggregate. When we talk about ourselves, human beings, myself, who am I? Who is me? I'm, whether you call Geshe Sherab, the monk, whatever, that is, imputed on the basis of my aggregate, my physical body, my feelings, my thoughts, my positive, negative thoughts, my virtues, non-virtuous thoughts, my sensories, my mental consciousness. Is that what would make me? So those are the aggregates, So all the sentient beings, are made of or dependent on their aggregate or made of their aggregates, and that aggregate itself is it is being result of contaminated karma and delusions. That is why it's called suffering. It's all pervasive suffering. Because of my aggregate, therefore, in our human terms, because of my this physical aggregate, I have to eat, I have to drink, and through eating and drinking, I have illness, sickness. Because of such aggregate, I have to get old. Because of such aggregate, I have to die one day. Because this aggregate cannot remain forever. This body cannot remain. My aggregate body cannot remain for forever. It ends, it decays, disintegrates one day. Because of this aggregate, then all other problems, suffering come because of this such aggregate. So the problem is having such aggregate. And such aggregate is the result of your contaminated karma and delusions. And as long as we have aggregate within any of the 6 realms, with the result of karma and delusions, you you don't have really total freedom. Instead of you having freedom, the wind of the delusions and the karma kind of carry us here and there. And that itself is a suffering. Or and that was what I think we mentioned last time, where Buddha also said, the 5 clinging aggregates are stressful of sufferings. Such, not all the aggregates, but aggregate that is a result of contaminated karma and the delusions. So that is it. In other words, another way of putting it, as long as our life, whatever form of life you have within any of the 6 realms, whatever form of life you might have, if your life is driven by your delusions and the karma, you have no control over the delusion karma, that itself is suffering. Let's take an example. If I'm a slave of someone, okay? If I'm a slave of someone, I have no freedom. I have no say. And I just follow what that person has to say. If that person says I have to walk 24 hours, whether I want it or not, whether I'm tired or not, I have to do that. They want me to go here and there where I don't want, I'm fearful, I'm not feeling well, I have no options, just go in there, have to do, because I have no freedom. How will you think? If you are a slave and you have no freedom, wouldn't you think that is a suffering? Would you think that is suffering? Absolutely, isn't it? Absolutely. So here, what the Buddha is saying, we are slaves of our delusion karma at this point. We are slaves of karma and delusions. The karma and the delusions drive us, and we don't seem to have control over that, freedom of that. That itself is suffering, because we are the slave of karma and delusions. We are the prisoner of the karma and the delusions. And it is very clear why we are prisoners and the slave of that. Just to give an example, I don't want to get upset and angry. I don't want to get frustrated. I try very hard not to get frustrated, not to get impatient, not to get angry. I pray every day. I even practice, but still sometimes those emotions just arises, overtake you, frustration overtake you, impatience overtake you, anger take over you. Not because you want it, even you don't want, and even you try so hard not to fall into that. That clearly shows we have no control over them. They are controlling us. You know, instead of me and my mind control the anger, attachments, jealousy, pride, impatience, frustrations, everything. Instead of me having control over them, and I don't want you to arise, and so you don't arise. It's not like that. I don't want to get angry, but angry make me to get angry. Do you get it? Not that, I control say, I don't want to get angry and say to angry, don't manifest it, don't arise it. Even I do that, it arises. It arises and it overpower you, over control you, and make you do things that you don't normally will not do. Anger take over you, and we say things that we normally will not say. We do things normally we will not do. And later we feel embarrassed, shame, bad, because we said something, we did something. And why we did that? Because that moment we lost ourselves. We were not control of ourselves. That delusion totally overtake us, control us, and make us do things that is what it is saying. Here, that is what when the Buddha's in the teaching, when they say all pervasive sufferings, as long as we are under the control or power of delusion and karma, as long as we are the slave and prisoner of the delusion and karma, that is self, is the suffering. That itself is the suffering. So, therefore, if you want to free from the sufferings, all the suffering permanently, completely permanently, then we have to free from especially the suffering of all pervasive. Until we are free from suffering of all pervasive, we can never free from the suffering and the samsara. Just by being free from suffering of suffering of pain is not going to liberate you from all the sufferings. It's not going to liberate you from the samsara. Even you don't have all the suffering that we talk about. Suffering of aging, suffering of death, suffering of illness, suffering of birth. Even you don't have suffering of, the fear and worry of, encountering that you do not want, encountering that you dislike, all of that. Even you don't have all this suffering. But if your life is driven by the delusion and karma, you are still not free from the suffering. You are not still free from the samsara. As I mentioned, according to Buddhism, Buddhist studies, and according to some of Buddha's teaching, in that there are certain level of realms, beings, what we call God realms. There are different level of God realms. In many of God realms, formless God realms, they have no suffering like we have here. They have no suffering of illness. They have no suffering of aging. There are no suffering of meetings, encountering that they do not like. There are no suffering of not getting, that their life, and so they don't have all these sufferings. They don't even have suffering with change, as I mentioned. Not only they don't have suffering with pain, they don't even have suffering with change. But still, they are still in samsara. They are still in samsara. They are still not free from all the sufferings because they are still under the control of the delusions and the contaminated karma. They are still not free from the delusion karma. They are not, therefore they are same like us. They are also slave and prisoner of their own delusion karma. Because of that, even they don't have suffering now, delusion karma, then they will be reborn in one of the birth where there's all these sufferings. Even they don't have now, even they are free from now, is not for evil. When their karma ran out, and when the delusion arises, and then when they create other negative karma, then they are born in situations or circumstances where they have, again, they experience the suffering. So therefore, in order to have a pure renunciation meaning, not to have any attachment, not to have any clinging, grasping attachment to the samsara and the experience of samsara. In order to have that, then we have to recognize not only the suffering of pain as a suffering, not only the suffering of change as suffering, but suffering of all pervasive as a suffering. When one realize that, one recognize that, then from the depth of your heart, from the bottom of your heart, then you develop a strong wish, aspirations, determinations to overcome the delusion contaminated karma. You really develop very strong determination and very strong aspiration and wish to fight and eliminate all those afflictive emotions of delusion and the contaminated karma. And you will try all your best through all the effort to do that. You will do that. But when you don't understand that, and that is then, our at the moment, our aspiration, our wish, our determination are not strong enough. Not profound. Not really coming from depth of our heart and to overcome them and trying to put effort to them, because we really haven't really understood, especially the last suffering of all purposes as a suffering, and also suffering of change as a suffering. So I guess with that, then I think maybe we will. So when you have this really understanding, deep understanding, then in terms of your own practice, when it comes to yourself, when you relate, then you will be able to give up clinging, grasping, and attachment to the, any kind of samsaric rebirth, any kind of samsaric experience, or even its pleasure, samsaric pleasure. We will not have clinging, grasping, and attachment. If you don't have any clinging, grasping, attachments, we will have more enjoyment, more peace, more happiness in our life. Our mind will be less fluctuating all the time, up and down, up the time. At the moment, our experience, our mind, our life is fluctuating all the time. One moment we're high, one moment we're low, one moment we feel happy, one moment very miserable. All of that due to mostly that kind of clinging, grasping, attachment. you know. So you will find more stable, more quiet, more peace in your mind. And when you practice the Dharma, your inspiration for the liberation, nirvana, become more, become more authentic from depth of your heart. At the moment, even though we say, we practice in order to achieve liberation, nirvana, sometimes it is just a word. It doesn't come from depth of your heart because we don't have deep understanding of the nature of the suffering, especially the subtle suffering, as I mentioned before. And also when it comes to others, this understanding is important. When we rely to others, then also it gives us the space to feel compassion for others. At the moment, we can feel compassion for those who are, when you hear, and when you see someone experiencing suffering or pain, someone is extremely, hungry, thirsty, wounded, or powerless, being abused, whatever, because it's obvious we feel compassion for that. But someone who is not experienced that suffering, we don't feel that same way for them. Someone who seems to have good health, someone who seems to have a good job, someone who seems to have fame, we don't feel compassion. Instead, we might feel jealousy with them. Instead, we might be aspiring to become like them. Instead, we feel, oh, I wish I also can have a good health and, good job, good wealth, fame like themselves. Instead, we wish to them, instead of compassion, we get jealousy in them, or we aspire to become them. Because we don't see their suffering. That's why we don't see compassion. But if you understand, even that person is not suffering of pain, but they are experiencing suffering of change. They are experiencing suffering of all pervasive. If you really understand, even though they don't have all this pain, but they have still their life is driven by their own delusion karma. They are still prisoner of their delusion karma. They are still slave of this delusion karma. Then you can feel compassion because you feel the pain and suffering of that person. Even though they don't have suffering or pain, always pain suffering, but you see they have other sufferings, suffering of change, suffering of all pervasive, because you see they are prisoner, they are being tortured by the delusions. They are slaves of their delusion, and delusions torturing them day and night. When you feel that, then it allows you to feel compassion for them. Then it allows us to feel compassion for everyone, not just few. And so that understanding is very crucial to have, in terms of renunciations, in terms of cultivating true compassion for all sentient beings. Yeah. So I think maybe I will stop here today. So any questions, comments from today's class?
Geshe, I'm sorry to interrupt. There's one question in the Zoom room.
Okay.
Okay. I'll read the question. It's a little bit long. The problem I have is the assumption that suffering is the final endpoint, whereas in fact, the nature of suffering is impermanent. It comes and goes. One is happy, one is unhappy, one is happy, and so on for the course of one's life, and your contaminated karma and delusions determine that ratio. So to say life is suffering, is it equally true to say life is happiness? Is it not? Indeed, if one loves unconditionally and is loved the same in return, a life together is quite incredible, since both recognize there will be suffering, but there will also be happiness. Please comment.
Of course, there are ways that we can make. I don't want to get sick. I don't know anyone want to get sick. But if I do get sick, I have to think positively about that because there's nothing I can do about it. Whatever treatment that there is, I try to do it, but I have to keep my mind positive. And in order to keep my positive, I might think of good thing of the sufferings. How because of this suffering, I'm able to practice Dharma more. Because of this suffering, I'm able to feel compassion for others. So there is a method, is a practice method to make most of it when you don't have. But if I don't have to get sick, why not do that? You know, if there is a way that I don't have to get sick to start with, if I can avoid the sickness, I will for sure go for that. But even despite trying to avoid the suffering, still if the suffering, the illness, if the illness arises, then I have to think positive about that. If I think negative about that, then it will not only physically painful and then emotionally, mentally, I will make it much more worse, and emotionally, mentally, I suffer more. So then I have to be positive and try to think it positively, and that is the same with our life in general, you know. But as you said, suffering and happiness momentary, and of course, if you can enjoy without attachment, there's no problem with that, you know. It's enjoying the happiness, it is another problem. It is problem is when you're clinging, grasping, and attachment. That is where it is, you know. The problem is that, and even those sufferings, as it is impermanent, it comes and goes. It comes and goes. But if I don't have to go through that coming and going, I will prepare for that. Yes, even illness. I get sick today. I go and see doctors or get some medicine cure. I can be cured of that, whether it's my stomach problem, whether I'm having some headache, or even I have a COVID. Maybe I can go and have medicine and I might be cured of that. But then I can get that next time, next week, next month, next year. There's possibility of that. And even though it's not permanent, it comes and goes. But if I don't have to get it all, I will go for that. Everyone will go for that, you know. So therefore, if there's a solutions, if the suffering can be end completely, if they come, it's not just coming and going, but it doesn't come at all. Again and again, comes, go, comes, but it hasn't come at all. If it can be ended, you should go for that. And that's what the Buddha is saying. Buddha is saying those sufferings, not only they're impermanent and they come and go, but if you practice and apply certain meditation technique, you can completely that then it doesn't even come momentarily, you know. And so I think that is that is all I have to say about comment on that. Yeah. Any others? Yeah. Otherwise we'll do the dedications.
So we dedicate the merit from listening to the teachings and contemplating the teachings to all sentient beings. In particular, for those suffering obstacles, we have Jessica, Moses H, Liam and sister, and Juliana H. Under sickness, we have Rolf, Elena P, Hillary B, Gerard S, and Rick M. And those who died recently are former Governor Bill Richardson.
Okay.
So, dedication for those. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions,
may I release in the state of the Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel Bodhisattva that is not arisen arise, and may that which has arisen increase, but increase more and more.
And long life prayers for our holy teachers. for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. The wish granting,
Wish fulfilling, the source of every single benefit and happiness is for all. With the incomparable kind and the gospel, and beseech may all the holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled.
And also the reincarnation of Geshe, Lama Yeshe. Venerable One, to you we shine as it seeks that of all conquerors. For those wanderers of far off places, especially the West, mindful of your loving concern for us, into the family of far distant land, we make this request. O Lama, please be seated. And we also have a prayer for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, written by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Fearless teacher and assembly of the children of victorious ones, Sabbaga and Babira Buddhas, victorious Lord, Son, Father, and Sons, along with the lineage master, all the objects, secures, and infinite lands. Please bestow the virtues and goodness of completing this prayer here and now. Holy spreading the Buddhist precious complete teaching. Through explanation and practice, you are the limit of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable and Guru to you are magnificent. While starting single pointed for the second the soul gateway through which will benefit and happiness first. For all other living beings, who suddenly departed the face, what a good loss. Never dare this through the ancestral blessings of the portions of today's group, and the great waves of worship of children and victorious ones. May the smile of the incarnations reflect in this sight. Now our Venerable Lama's lines be firm, their right divine action is spread in the 10 directions. And the torch of Love Song's teaching is dispelling the darkness of the three worlds beings always remain. In all future lives, may we never be parted from the perfect lamas and pure ways of the Dharma. May we gain every experience of path and stages, and quickly attain the stage of polar darkness.
Thank you. And again, also maybe relating that cautions, just to give another examples.
Thank you, Geshe.
Yeah, even the positive and negative feelings and thought are also momentary impermanent. Anger arises and goes, feeling of compassion, love arises and goes. And that's impermanent, comes and goes. And of course, we try to enjoy our life as much as we can according to that. But if there is a way that I can stop my anger from even arising momentarily, I would do for that. Even if it's momentarily, it's a very destructive, it's a very harmful, it's a very negative, harmful to yourself and to others. Even if it's momentary, even if it doesn't last for long. So therefore, if there's a way to not to arise even for a momentary, if there's a method, if there's a technique, if there's a meditation, if there's a path to do that, we will definitely do for that. And so, yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Geshe,
Okay.
can I please make one quick announcement, a very important announcement? Next weekend, Geshe Sherab's Mani retreat is in Santa Fe, and the registration is due tomorrow. And that's at our sister center in Santa Fe, Tim and Norba Ling. The retreat is begins on Friday from 7 to 8:30 p.m. It's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and all of the information is at the Tim and Norba Ling website. If you go to tnlsf.org, you can get all the information for next weekend's retreat. It will be in person and on Zoom. So you can attend one session, all the sessions, all the information's on the website.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, John.
Everyone. Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
So Liz.
I'm not sure about that.